Hi everybody, welcome back to the studio. It's been a while. This video is sponsored by absolutely no one, which I can only put down to my infectious enthusiasm and love of all things YouTube. So today I'm going to talk about a shoot I did with a barber called Ben. I shot this in Sheffield. I met Ben in a clothing store where he cuts hair. The clothing store is Mamnik in Sheffield, which is run by my friend Tom. Check Mamnik out. I'll put a link in the comments below. And speaking of sponsorship, if you have got any money to spend or waste, there's also a link below for my workshop, which is a portrait workshop. So it's pretty cool. It's about 2.5 to 3 hours, I think. And it's basically me just kind of shooting people and metering, learning all about metering, different lighting techniques and stuff like that. That's in the link below. So basically what I did on this shoot, I took the RZ67, I took the GFX 50S Mark II with an 80mm f1.7 lens. I used daylight, only used daylight on this one. I didn't want to be dragging lights around, especially the nan lights, because they have to be plugged in and stuff. Didn't want to use flash because it would kill the ambience in the shop, in the barber shop. So, and it was winter, and it was a bright winter's day, January. Really bright, but there's no direct sunlight. The sunlight was actually reflecting off a window back into the shop itself. So that was the only light that we had. So it was all directional from the left-hand side as I'm looking at him. So had no reflectors or anything like that, but I knew if I metered it correctly, I would get decent shots. One thing to note on this, I shot a roll of portrait and a roll of Tri-X? Delta, sorry Alfred, Delta 400. I shot a roll of Delta 400 and a roll of Kodak Portra 400, which was out of date by about 2 months, but it had been refrigerated. And when I got the shots back, the first couple of shots were they had a light leak on them, which I'd never had any light leaks on the RZ before. I can only assume it was done in processing perhaps. And the scans were god awful, so I'm not even going to show you the portrait. So everyone who talks about Portra 400 being like the best portrait film around, mine was absolute dog shit. So yeah, I won't be shooting that for a while. But the Delta, developed that in the studio as soon as I got back, and the scans have come out really nice, to be honest. I'm glad I took the GFX as well, because I did want some colour. There's a nice kind of yellow curtain behind him, which we used as a little bit of a backdrop. And Ben himself was wearing kind of greens and navies and wool. That's the theme of Mamnik's shop is it's all British made, sustainable wool, stuff like that. Also has a cycling theme running through it. As I said, check that out. Window light was all we had, and then it was just me with the camera. I took the tripod for the RZ, because obviously shutter speeds in winter time, it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, so it was like the sun was at its highest. It was only going to be dropping from there on in. But I took the tripod for the RZ67, even though I was shooting on 400 film. I think I was getting exposures at about 1/60th f2.8, which is fine. It's fine for hand holding, to be honest, but I just find with the tripod it helps you get that. You can sometimes get a little bit of a wonk on when you hand hold, especially if you don't use the grip. So that the tripod sort of counteracts that, but it does slow you down and it does stop you being, like with the GFX I can kind of move around, I can get into funny angles. You don't do it so much with the RZ, and I think that's why the RZ images often have that kind of certain look. They're all very staged and purposeful, whereas with the GFX or any other camera you can be more sort of like on the fly, moving around. So the GFX files actually came out really nice. I think I shot them in nostalgic neg simulation, which I don't use many film sims, but the nostalgic neg, it does warm up nicely, especially in winter, because obviously in Britain winter light is bluer than anything. It's awful. Some people like the blue light. I can't stand it because we have it for about 6 months of the year, and I long for just like a golden hour. But nostalgic neg on the GFX, that's what I shot that on. Added a bit of grain as well, just to take the digital edge off it and to match it up with the RZ files, really. The delta files, developed them in DDX, 1:4 ratio, I think, for all you darkroom geeks. So the RZ files come out really nice, to be fair. I only shot one roll, so 10 shots. Obviously I shot the Portra, but we won't talk about Portra. But the Deltas come out lovely. Delta 400 always comes out beautiful. It's one of my favourite films. I love Tri-X as a 400 film, but Delta 400, there's just something about it. I don't think it gets enough love. Everyone talks about HP5, but Delta's pretty special for me. It works for either my scanning, the local water, I don't know, but it always comes out really, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through the shoot. I've got some behind the scenes footage for you as well. Any questions, write them on the floor. I don't know why I'm pointing down, it's the floor. Comments, put them in the comments below or wherever they are. Okay, here I am in the editing suite, which basically means I've moved the camera from there to there. Okay, so it's a slightly different angle. I know I'm not fooling anyone. I know you're all pretty like cinematography savvy, but anyway. Okay, I'm just going to run through everything I shot on this shoot with you. Before I do that, I'm just going to give you some. I'm just going to show you some behind the scenes footage of the actual shoot, and then we'll just have a quick run through these. So obviously this one's a bit messy. We've got a radiator behind, and this desk's a little bit messy. That's a bit messy, that white thing there. But as you can see, these were done on the GFX f1.7. I've shot to f2, ISO 320, 1/10 of a second. Anyway, this is the yellow curtain I was telling you about. As you can see, he's very natural, earthy kind of colours. So this yellow curtain just gives it a little bit of pop. You can see that I've metered from the left-hand side, well, the right-hand side of Ben's face, left as we look at it. And you can see with the curtain the way the light's coming in. So the big windows on the left-hand side, they're really, really good windows, to be honest. Perfect. And then the light was, the sun wasn't actually coming through the window, but it was reflecting off a pane of glass on a building opposite, which is always, it's always really good light if you can find it. So look out for that if you're shooting on location. Obviously we've got the barber chair in just to get a bit of context as to what he is. He's not just there sort of like modelling Tom's jumpers, although he was modelling Tom's jumpers. He did a real good job of it. One thing I've noticed as well lately about my work is I tend to shoot a lot of, everything's in portrait format, and I've been looking at the work of Mariel and Mark lately, and I love her work. She's like such a source of inspiration. Every January when like creatives are in the doldrums, I'm always looking at her book. So I need to shoot more portraits in landscape format. So I just have to remind myself of that. This one, I always like to get this kind of odd composition where there's a lot of negative space. If there's a downlight, something like that, I like to get that in shot as well. That's actually putting a tiny, tiny little bit of a rim light on the back of Ben's head there, which is quite nice. More straight on, more symmetrical. It's got a really good look. Similar kind of thing. And then again, went for some quirky angles, got the stool in. Don't know what that is. I wasn't even paying attention to that thing. I think it's a chair. I think it's another chair. So crop that out on the next one. It's an odd crop. I'm not entirely happy with where I've cropped him at the leg. I don't like that kind. I prefer it to be either up there or above the knee, but it is what it is. Did it, I own it, I don't care. The GFX files, when you meter correctly, I always handheld meter for the RZ obviously, but I find with GFX files the meter is off by a good full stop. So bear that in mind if you're using the old analog style meters. It's freezing in my studio today. Which is why I keep sniffing. I've normally just got a little dribble. The dribble on the end of my nose might sponsor next week's video. Okay, same shot. Ben's getting into it now, he's giving me the look. And that's a really nice one. I love that shot. And then I just do these for Instagram, put them in the same folder on this one, because it was such a quick test shoot. I was probably there 20 minutes. and talking about fishing with Ben for the rest of the time. And then we go on to the RZ shots. This is a Guernsey. This jumper's a Guernsey. It's a fisherman's jumper. If you want one of these, get in touch with Tom at Mamnick. Shameless plug, Tom. Shameless plug. Oops. That's my favourite, I think. I love the fact that we've just got a little bit of his hand in there, and the texture in the wool, the texture in his face, you can see it all. It renders the medium format, the 6/7, I'm going to say sensor, but format. The 6/7 format really does, f2.8 really does like give you a beautiful kind of rendering of an image. That 110 lens on the RZ will always be my favourite. I often do this where I meter from the opposite side. Obviously this is the side that's fallen into shadow, but I've metered for this side, and it just gives it that kind of wraparound kind of shape and form. So these are the typical scans that I get, as I've mentioned before when I'm scanning negs. I like to shoot 6 sections of each negative. Like just exactly like that, 6 sections, and then put that into Photoshop, use the photo merge tool, and then that gives you a basic full file scan, and the scans you're going to get from that are massive files. So I've spoke about it before, that's why I do it. And also it means rather than using a scanner, I can get the film border in, which I love getting the film border in for 2 reasons. It really annoys a lot of people. So that's the main reason why because it annoys people. But also I can remember what film I shot it on. And it looks cool. And if it looks cool, it's good enough for me. That's a song, that, somewhere. So yeah. Then did like a cheeky little contact sheet, which is just, again, it's just merging almost manually. It's just putting the individual files together in sections of 3. One thing I did notice on this, there's a slight banding there on a couple of the files, which I think is down to the scan, possibly. Well, it is down to the scan. It's not the camera. On that, you can see it. You can see it's cutting across there. But in a way, like sometimes these like little mistakes that you get on analogue, I kind of like them. They give it a little bit of character. I know purists again will be moaning and going, that's not correct. I don't care, and I quite like it. My Capture One on this 2021 iMac is so slow. It's painful. It's absolutely painful. Another one where again I've metered for the opposite side. I've opened it up a little, half a stop there, so you can just see that that side of his cheek is ever so slightly overexposed, but not too much. His eye's perfect, to be fair. Yeah, that is my absolute favourite. It's the face, it's the texture of the jumper, sweater if you're American, or Guernsey if you're from Yorkshire. It's everything, the texture of the skin, the light, composition. I just love this shot. This is my favourite of the entire shoot. So that was it. Probably, I think there was 14 shots on the GFX and 10 shots on this, and the portrait that we will never speak about again. Thanks for watching.